Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline. I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Taryn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz. I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts. Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show. Today, we are joined by a returning guest, Chicago interior designer, Alexandra Kaehler. You know her by her beautifully put together spaces and her finely tuned eye for editing. She founded her firm in 2011 and is joining us to discuss her highly anticipated debut book, A Welcome Home, Inviting Interiors. Featuring 8 stunning homes designed for young families, the book is a masterclass in using playful prints, saturated colors, and clever solutions to create spaces that are authentic to the people who live in them. Welcome to the show, Alexandra Kaehler. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yes, thrilled to have you and loved getting to see the new book, A Welcome Home. It's beautiful. And what an achievement to have your first book out.
Thanks. I feel very proud. It feels like I gave birth to another child. And it's really fun to have it out in the world now because it was sort of something I had and I kept very close to the chest for a long time while I was working on it. And so now it's fun to be able to have other people enjoy it too.
Tell us about the process because you've had your design firm for 15 years now. And, you know, I think writing a book is such a milestone for many designers, but was there anything about it that surprised you, was harder than you expected, was easier than you expected?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the part that's hard is the waiting. It's a long process no matter how quickly you move. And I move pretty quickly and can get through a task or a to-do list that's assigned to me fast. But the publishing world has kind of this start to finish timeline where it just takes 2 years. And it's pretty hard to get around that. And so I was so excited. I felt like I had this body of work that I was ready to share, and I got the book deal. And then it was like, okay, now we're going to sit on our hands for 2 years. And that was hard for me. It was hard to, I still was running my design business. And so I was trying to build my social following because a lot of my clients come from that. And I needed content, but I couldn't share all these projects that were in my book. I think that part was really challenging. But I love photographing projects when they're done. I think just find that to be such a special cherry on top to be able to have some takeaway of this home that you've created. And so shooting all these projects to put them in the book was really so fun and kind of easy, although I feel like other designers might really not appreciate me saying that because photo shoots are so much work, but they're just so fun. And it's a great sort of culmination of everything you've been doing. And yeah, it was a fun, collaborative project for me. And I really got to exercise a different part of my brain and work with different people and learn something entirely new, like the world of creating a book. It's just all these skills and things that you just don't do unless you're doing a book. And I remember talking to an agent and she was like, well, you have to put together a book proposal. And I was like Googling what a book proposal was. This was like 3 years ago. So ChatGPT was not there to support me.
You weren't able to say, hey, Gemini, can you please write?
Right. You get extra props for that then.
Thank you. Our kids will never know. But it was fun. It was great to do something new. And I'm really proud of it.
It's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can totally understand having all this beautiful photography that you're trying to put out there and not able to. Did you photograph everything specifically for the book, or was there anything that you had photographed and just used for the book later?
So my sister's house is one of the chapters in the book, and that I had already photographed, and it had been shared on House Beautiful, but it was such a strong project that it just felt crazy to do a book and not include it. It had a great story, and she loves color and pattern, and I wasn't sure about the idea of including something that had already been published, but my publisher was like, no, that one's definitely being included. Yeah. And then everything else was shot for the book, including So my old house, which I don't live in anymore, is in the book. And I actually reshot it right before we moved for the book, which was really fun, especially to see sort of like we lived there with our kids for 6 years, and how it changed over those 6 years was actually like a really fun thing for me to be able to document myself and have photos from when we first finished it to when right before we moved out.
Okay, we are gonna have to get to that at the end, your new
Yeah.
house, because if anyone has been following her on social, you know that she's been renovating, so we'll get to that at the end because we don't wanna miss
Yes.
talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, the other thing I was gonna ask is, anyone who's followed you for a long time knows that you used to have a blog, and that was sort of something you started before opening your firm. Did that make it easier to write the book? Was writing something that you, um, got to sort of re-enter after not blogging for a while, or did that contribute at all?
So I didn't actually write the text of my book. Hadley Keller, who's an amazingly talented writer, she wrote the text. What was fun and sort of reminiscent of the blog was just the storytelling aspect of it. Um, and and so basically what I would do with Hadley was she would get the photos and then we'd schedule a call and she would just be like, "Okay, talk to me about this project. Like tell me everything." And and that was just really fun because you get to sort of like rehash what the design brief looked like, and um, it's just this opportunity to reflect. And I think that the blog was always kind of a place for that. Although I will say, once I started doing more like real interiors work, my blog kind of started fading into the background a little bit. And so I didn't get to do that type of like design reflection necessarily. Um, so it was I guess it was a little bit of a different experience, but fun to do it in a new way.
Yeah.
Well, she did a great job
She
writing
did.
because it really does. I mean, it's from a first person perspective. She got your voice. I love going through and getting the debrief
Yeah.
on every single project and really kind of getting the ins and outs. It's a really fun read.
Thank you. When you do a coffee table book, you know that not everyone is going to read it, but you want the people who do read it to feel like they're getting something. And I knew it wasn't going to be like a how to of any sort. And, it's a very traditional monograph in the way that it's done. But I'm a pretty unfiltered, casual person. And Hadley really got that about me. And we were friends first. And so I think that helped that she knew my voice and she did a beautiful job of writing in it. And I really wanted people to feel like it wasn't like this magazine perfect family that lived in this house. Like anybody can have this house. And that's why like it was so important to me to include pictures of the people. Because I think that sometimes like I found it even with my clients, like they would be looking through magazines and they'd look at these houses and they'd be like, well, this is beautiful, but like I have 3 kids. I can't live in a house like that. Or like I have 2 dogs. I can't live in a house like that. And so I wanted to show like, no, these people have 3 kids too. And like these people have 2 dogs also. And so I think it just made it so much more relatable. Like, yes, they're high-end, beautiful interiors, and they probably feel really precious when you're looking at just a photo. But then you see like, oh, they're sitting having coffee in their formal living room with their feet up on the table. So I wanted that to come through in the writing. And I think Hadley just did a beautiful job.
And even seeing like the little kids on the staircase and stuff, it makes
Yeah.
sense again of just like that whole people do live here. And that is the thing about a book, usually again a home book, that sometimes you do lack who lives here.
Yeah.
Right. And so to your point, it can be very overwhelming. You're like, I assume this person is someone I'm making up in my head versus like these are the people that like love
Yeah.
these spaces.
Yeah. And you think like, oh, they say they've got little kids, but like their little kids probably aren't going in that room, or like their little kids are probably not climbing on the banister. And so you see that like, no, that little kids, everybody's little kids are everywhere. You can't keep them in a cage as much as you might want to.
Yeah. As much as you say don't touch it or go in that room, they will.
Yes,
Yeah.
they will. Yeah.
If the drape's silk, they will hide in it with chocolate hands. That is what they will do.
Oh yeah, there's like a beacon to them. The the more
Right.
delicate it is.
Yeah.
Mm,
I
mhm.
know.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask, just about working with your sister to do her place. Like, how did that go? Because I feel like that's a fun, but it would be hard, I think, to like. So I want to know how that went.
Yeah. It went great. We just had so much fun together, and she had such a distinct point of view going into the project. She was like, I want an old house. I want it to be quirky. I want it to have a ton of personality. And I love English interiors, but they get like too muddy and serious for me. And I want it to feel a little bit more vibrant and a little bit more saturated. And more is more is more. And you're not allowed to paint a single wall white. And that was tough for me because I love a palette cleanser of a white wall. And I definitely I love a big moment, and then I love to really pull back and let that big moment be the moment. And my sister wants a big moment everywhere. But I think she really sort of respected that it was my expertise, and I very rarely pushed. And so when I did, she paid attention. And a lot of people are afraid of that much color. She is definitely not afraid. And I think my husband probably had the hardest time with it because he's like, oh my gosh, the two of you cannot be in a room together. You need to set meeting times, and that's when you're talking about this stuff, because we'd get together for a family dinner and then sit in the corner with fabric samples.
Sounds fun to me. Sounds like a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. And yeah, we just, I've worked with family a lot, and I have a pretty strict way that I do it, where I say to them, I'm going to treat you like a client, and I want you to treat me like a professional, because if we blur the lines too much, this is going to we're not going to enjoy it. And, I don't bill them for my own time, but they get billed for my employees' time, and they're treated like a true client. They're taking up, especially a project where I'm doing your whole house, you're taking up a slot in my calendar. And so that's always worked really well for me. I did my mom's house a few years ago. I've done a project for my dad. I actually enjoy working with family, as long as everybody's on the same page that it's still a professional project.
So after at dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, after you guys sat in the corner, you're like, oh, here's that bill for that hour. You owe me. I'm joking with you.
Well, that's why I don't bill my family for my time, because I will sit and text you a million links at 10 o'clock at night because I think it's fun. Whereas I wouldn't do that with a client, because that, boundaries.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything surprising about your sister in the process? We always talk about how design is such an intimate working relationship, because you're, in someone's home and in their life, and you have to know them so well. And, obviously you would have known so many things about your sister, but was there anything in the creative process that you were like, oh, okay?
She was a lot more decisive than I expected her to be. She really, once she locked in on something, she knew that was what she wanted. And that's a pretty rare thing for clients. So that was great. And I also really appreciated how much she challenged me. I mean, there were things that I pushed back on initially that she just said, no, that's not me. It's not what I want. And made me go back to the drawing board. And it turned out better because of that.
I want to talk about the decision in the primary bedroom.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
For our listeners, the primary bedroom is covered in a beautiful pattern that is pattern-drenched on the bed, on the bench, on the chair, on the drapery, on the Romans.
On the walls.
Everywhere. It's everywhere. So whose initial idea was that, and who just added and then on that?
So her bedroom actually has a great story. So we our grandparents growing up had Lee Jofa's Althea fabric, which is a beautiful traditional chintz. They had that in their family room. And it was a room we spent a ton of time in growing up, and we all feel sort of nostalgia around it and attached to it. And I had a sofa in that fabric in my old house. And then my cousin did a chair in it in her living room. And my sister was like, I want to do it in my bedroom. And so our initial plan was this like really English pattern on pattern, like kind of cottagey feel paired with the Althea. And we went to place the order, and it was on back order for something crazy, like 47 weeks. And she was so decisive. And she was like, you know what? I love that fabric. But if I ever have a little girl, I think I'd almost rather save that fabric and use it in her room and do something different in mine, since it feels like things are not aligning. So we went back to the drawing board, and she said, we call our grandparents Nana and Papa. She was like, Nana and Papa's bedroom growing up was all in one pattern. Like everything was all, and it was this like red and cream toile. And she was like, what if we did something like that? And she was really specific. She was like, I want a white ground. I want a small scale print, and I want it to be more than 2 colors. Like unleashed me. Like, okay, now
What
go
a
show me.
great prompt.
Right? Great.
Yeah.
And like specific enough, but not too specific. And so this was, it was 5 years ago, and this was just as Sewn was really getting this presence in the United States. And I showed her this dianthus chintz from Sewn, and she completely fell in love with it. She was like, it's perfect. It's everything I want. And I remember going to place the order for, a gazillion yards. And my rep was this like lovely woman who I ended up becoming good friends with over the years. But she was like, oh, okay. Like she was even surprised by it. And I was like, oh gosh, I hope that doesn't mean I'm making a mistake here. But like, we're just going to commit. And my instinct was like, okay, we're going to do the drapes and we're going to do the walls. Let's do the bed in a solid. And my sister was like, no, if we're doing this, like we are committing to this. And I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do it, let's do like a square headboard. And she was like, we're going to do this like really fancy scallop shape. And she really pushed me. Like this was not, I would have pulled back. And I think it is so spectacular and it's so impactful. And yes, it would have been beautiful if we made those other choices, but it's so much stronger like this. And it's just, not everybody could have a bedroom like that. Like my husband is always like, I would never fall asleep if that was my room. Like it's like would like, make me go blind.
Don't you
But she
think
loves
it
it.
kind of like goes away in a sense?
Yes.
Like it sort of
Yeah.
becomes a neutral, as crazy as that is.
No, I totally agree. I always push people on that in bedrooms who feel like, oh, we need like simplicity to create calm. I think you can create calm in other ways if there's not all these fighting patterns and textures. But yeah, it's just a showstopper of a room. It's special. And, she found like that wingback chair that she's got in the corner in that same chintz. She found that in my grandparents' storage room. And she's just got all these really meaningful pieces layered in. And what's funny is that I purposely shot her house not right when it was finished, but like pretty shortly after, because she is a collector. And the amount of layers, things that have been added since I shot it, I should say, it's beautiful, but it's a lot.
It's so funny that you say that, though, because flipping through the pages, the chapter that is her home, it's not the way you're describing it. I'm sure listeners would think it would feel really over the top, but there's a real quietness. And I think that's something that there's a real quietness there, and it's not overdone. And it's, there's still a lot of moments where it doesn't, you kind of have to look for the whimsy, I guess, like you kind of talk in the book about the art feeling a little bit traditional, but also a little bit fanciful.
Yeah.
So your own design work does have a real edited quality to it, which I've always loved. And that's still evident here in your sister's house, even though she did kind of push you to go further.
Yeah. And I think my editing has kind of faded into the background for her as time has gone on, which is great. And I want clients' houses, whether they're my family or not, to be a reflection of them, not of me. And so, in terms of photographing it and publishing it, it made sense that it was at this kind of edited AKD phase of things. And I love going over and seeing what she's added. And, every once in a while she'll run something past me, but usually like she just chooses things she loves. And I love that.
Okay, but because it is your sister, do you ever just go through and be like, I'm just going to restyle this
Oh,
and
yeah.
tone
Of
it down a
course,
little
all the
bit?
time. I went over to her house a few weeks ago to play mahjong, and I was like, "Your family room shelves look terrible. I'm taking it all out, and I'm redoing your shelves." And she was like,
God, I
"Oh,
love that.
okay."
I love
Ugh.
that.
And I was like,
Yeah.
it just has collected stuff, and like the scale is wrong, and it took me 20 minutes, and I just restyled the shelves. So yes, I'm still me, and she can always tell me no.
You
But
have
yeah.
that bond with a sister where you can tell them that,
Yes,
like,
yes, yes, yes.
"No, that is not a cute outfit on you."
Yeah, yes,
See, I have a
exactly.
brother. This is all not anything we would ever discuss. I wish I had a sister like the 3 of you. Well
Sometimes, I don't know, I feel like
I was gonna
I mean, I'm
say.
I'm obsessed with my sisters, but there's a lot of communication about each other's thoughts, you know? Sometimes we could probably keep them to ourselves.
That's very true.
I would love to talk about the arts and crafts house because I loved that project, and in some ways, it almost felt um, more full on than your sister's.
Yeah,
There were certain rooms that were just so, like, wonderfully saturated. I loved that, well, actually, start by just telling maybe our listeners about the house a little bit and sort of the jumping off points.
okay. So it's a 1920s bungalow in the arts and crafts style. It's a very Chicago, like, Midwestern style of architecture, and, from a construction renovation perspective, it really didn't need very much, but it was really kind of just this sad, flat house. And my client came to me, and she's from the South, and she was like, "I want color and traditional shapes." And so my first step for people is always to ask them to collect inspiration imagery. And it can be, a paint color that you like, or a whole room that you like, or something you don't like. And she collected these images for me, and it was all over the place. Like, really, like, kind of funky Jacques Grange, like, French things where I was just like, I I thought we were going this totally different direction. And I really struggled. And some of it was like super, super, super traditional, like very European heavy, like what you see in a castle. Um, and I was having a really hard time pulling common threads. And so we sat down together, and basically what I realized is that she loves saturated color, and she loves, like, whimsy. She didn't want it to feel serious, and she did like traditional, but she still wanted it to feel fresh. And so, um, that was kind of all I needed in terms of a brief. And, um, we just got to work, and it's saturated and pattern filled and whimsical, and it doesn't feel formal or serious. Um and, really the only construction we did was, some light renovations in the kitchen, but they didn't wanna take that full renovation on, and so we just kinda put some lipstick on it, and I think it just turned into such a cool, funky house. It just has so much personality, and we incorporated a ton of family heirlooms that they had, which I love when I have the opportunity to do that and inject those meaningful things. Um, and yeah, I just kinda love that it went from this house where, like, I didn't really know what they wanted, and then it turned into being, like, one of my favorite projects, and it has so much personality. Sometimes when you get kind of a diluted brief, you end up with a diluted end product, and this was not at all the case. I feel like we were really able to hone in on what she wanted, what they wanted.
I mean, the purple banquette was just sort of a wow moment. Um, just to describe it for our listeners, it's a giant U-shaped, what, purple leather banquette.
It
I
sounds
mean, it
hideous.
sounds hideous, but it is magical.
Yeah, you didn't describe that well. I mean, you described
Well,
it, but you
I
didn't.
mean,
That's
I'm trying to be
perfect.
hyperbolic because if you were to just describe it, yeah, it's a U-shaped, like, almost a grape yellow, but like in or a grape purple, but in a
No, it's totally
great
grape.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
But it grounds
oh
the
god,
wallpaper that's happening behind it,
so
which is
fabulous.
a
The
lattice
trellis,
vine
yeah. Mhm.
wallpaper, which
And
again
And then the
is,
chintz shade
oh, the
too, layered
shade
in.
just
Chintz
makes
shade is
Mhm.
it
my
oh my
mhm.
gosh, such a
Yeah,
good
the chintz
mix.
shade is, like, everything.
I
I'm
think for that space, it was like, if you look at the wallpaper and the chintz light fixture, you're like, "Oh, it's so sweet." And so we needed something to make it not feel sweet. And yes, the purple let's call it eggplant. I'm gonna call it
It
eggplant.
is.
It's
Yes,
aubergine,
it is.
Caroline.
Aubergine.
No, it
Uh,
is.
yeah, like, that just it, like, totally amps it up, you know? It feels playful, and it doesn't feel serious, and it doesn't feel too sweet. And purple's a color I really struggle with. It's not something I'm generally drawn to, and when I think about this space, I don't think any other color would have worked. Like, pink or coral would have felt way too girly, and I think a blue would have felt way too serious. Like, this just worked, and it pulled some of those colors out of the chintz, which I think just draws your eye up even more to that light fixture.
Mhm.
Um, and and I think the other thing to note, and you don't necessarily get this from the book, is that this little breakfast nook where it lives is open to the kitchen completely. And the kitchen is like, it's white cabinets. The walls are wallpapered in a really subtle stripe, but it's a pretty neutral space. And so I love the idea of having this really bold moment that's kind of tucked away.
Yeah.
Well, I love there are other bold moments in this house too
There are.
that yeah, there are a lot, but that I feel like are act as like grounding connections from room to room,
Yep,
like
exactly what I wanted.
the bold yellow butler's pantry.
Fabulous. That had got how many shades of yellow did you try to go through?
Seriously.
I am one. It was the very first one. My
Wow.
design assistant was like, "I think this color is perfect." And I was like,
Huge
"God, I think so
flex
Oh
too."
my
right
god,
there.
yellow's so
Total
hard.
flex.
Yellow's hard, but
Yeah.
I think the key to this yellow was that it felt really rich without going into, like, an ochre. Like,
Mhm.
it felt very truly yellow but not buttery and sweet. And to your point, Liz, like, it pulled from the dining room in this really beautiful way. It balanced the white kitchen because it sits between the kitchen and the dining room, and so,
Yeah.
it's like you want some attachment to those spaces, and I think yellow is a color people are so scared of because it can be hard to live with, and it also can feel really dated, and and this just felt fresh with the green countertop. It was just unexpected and funky and cool.
Yeah. Well, props to your book designer too, because they paired it in the most beautiful way with the wallpaper,
Huh.
showing just how it picks
Yeah,
up from the gold in the
Uh-huh.
peacock's feathers.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just everything. It's so good.
Thanks. It was fun. I mean, there's nothing better than when a client it just goes for it.
What an I love that wallpaper in the dining room and how it, you mentioned that it's your client's grandmother or
Yeah,
grandparents' dining set. Um, and it really adds a lightheartedness in there that I think so many people like wish they could use their
yeah.
grandparents, their heirloom pieces, but struggle to come up with a way to make it feel not like it just you picked it up and put it in there. And you just did that so beautifully.
Thanks. I think a dining set is really hard. I have people come to me all the time with a dining table. Love that. That's easy, no problem. You can integrate that into just about anything. But the full set, the table, the chairs, the buffet, the corner cabinet, it's tough because I think it can feel stuffy really, really fast. And so we went really strong in the other direction to balance that. And this, like, tropical, bold, saturated mural paper was just, it felt like the perfect counterbalance. Like, it couldn't feel stuffy with that on the walls, right? Like, it was, like, no matter what the furniture in that room was, it was not gonna feel stuffy. Um, and I love that she had these pieces that were meaningful to her and wanted to incorporate them, and they'd been in her family for a long time, and we reupholstered the seats on the chairs, and we did add different end chairs, which felt important to sort of just bring in a little bit of softness, 'cause I think when the chairs are all wood and the table's wood and there's all these case goods that are wood, you need some softness there. Um, but the pairing of colors, it's kind of like this mushroom with coral, and then the drapes are like a olive. So these are some the coral obviously is pulled from the wallpaper, but that like kind of taupe and olive are really unexpected and kind of quiet, muddy colors that just balance the saturated paper a little bit, so that it doesn't feel juvenile.
Was there any part of you that was gonna try to talk her out of using every piece from in there?
Yeah.
Was that ever in the conversation?
Yeah, I think I brought it up at one point, like, could we use the table in the buffet and put the chairs in the corner cabinet in storage? Um, but she pretty quickly was like, "No, I really wanna use the whole thing." And, had I felt like we were sacrificing the design, I may have pushed a little bit harder, but, at the end of the day, this is her house, and those are meaningful things to her, and I'm just not the person who's gonna come in and be like, "Nope, sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I know it. I know you care, but I don't."
Well, and what a you know, it sort of led you to create this really, really unique space that no one
Yeah.
else could replicate, which I think
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah, I think so too, and it has personality, and it feels like hers, and she walks into it, and she's like, "Oh, this is like my grandmother sat here and, served Thanksgiving table off of this buffet," and, like, that's what a home should be.
Mhm. Okay, I also loved that pink or, well, red, pink, pinky floral
Yeah.
sectional. Ugh.
Oh, the best.
Ok
It's my favorite piece of furniture.
and this is a real theme throughout the book and your work is patterned sofas and sectionals. So talk us through that because I can imagine many a people would think that was very scary and a lot of yardage and
Yes.
a
It's a
lot of
commitment.
a lot of commitment. So tell us why a patterned sofa or sectional is so great.
So, I mean, there's a few reasons. The first is that it's just inherently camouflage, right? So you spill something on a solid color and like that's all you see. You spill something on a pattern and it can kind of like blend in a little bit. And so that's a big selling point for people who have dogs or kids or, are messy themselves on their furniture. Like it is less precious when it's a pattern. So that's first of all. Um, Second of all, the places where I tend to do like this piece or the green floral sectional piece in my sister's house, those are both really small rooms where this sofa is like the moment. This is the main thing you see when you walk in, and there aren't many other pieces of furniture in the space. And so I think in that case, you want it to be strong. You want it to have like a bold sort of something to say. And otherwise, those small rooms can feel a little bit flat. And so like this room, there's nothing flat about it, and all it is this sofa and a small desk. There's no other furniture in
There's
the
not
room.
even drapery, which I didn't even notice until, yeah, flipping back in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that I think that opting out of drapery. I mean, I have a project that's in the book also where we didn't do a single window treatment in the entire house except for in the bedrooms. Um, and that's coming from someone who loves drapery. But I think sometimes that choice to not add in another layer can be really strong and meaningful in the design.
Is that project without the window treatments, is that
Yeah.
something was that a client directive, or is that something that you just felt like it didn't need it?
We kind of came to it together. Like once we started talking about that as a component to the design, we both felt like, gosh, it doesn't align with the aesthetic, first of all. It felt like kind of, like I hate to say this because I don't actually think that drapery is stuffy, but in their house, it felt stuffy.
Mhm.
And they have these really beautiful original windows, and it felt like it totally distracted from that and took away from the strong architecture of the house. And so it wasn't this decision of like, we're not putting window treatments anywhere on the first floor. But as we would complete each room, we were just like, this just doesn't need it.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, that is not something I do often, but it, sometimes.
I mean, you have tons of beautiful drapery in here, and, I feel like every designer is like, "Drapery, it's the
I know.
best part."
Oh,
So,
it
it's funny to
is.
hear
It
that,
is.
but I can see where it makes sense, yeah.
It would also definitely compete with that gorgeous sofa. So
Well, that's the
I think
thing, right? Like, had
yeah.
I done drapery in there, I think I probably I don't think I would have done drapery in there in that room actually, because I think that drapes with those pink walls and that pink sofa, I think it would have felt really sweet. I think if I was gonna do any window treatments in that space, I probably would have done like a woven of some sort. But the light in there is so beautiful, and it's their office, and so they don't use it at night, so they don't need it for
Mhm.
privacy. So it was kind of an easy space to say, like, let's let the
Yeah.
windows shine, and you've got, windows on all 3 sides of that space. And if you don't need it for privacy and you don't need it for aesthetics, then it's an easy skip.
Can we talk about the house with the family that doesn't cook? Because
That's the one with no window treatments.
Oh,
That made
yeah,
me
yeah.
funny.
Okay,
That made me
Yeah.
laugh.
tell us about I just thought that was a funny,
Yeah.
like, detail in there, and that was how I was
Yeah.
classifying it in my head.
No, I
Yes.
totally did as well, Caroline, because the line about how she yells at her husband when he makes eggs because
Yes.
she's like, "This is not a functional kitchen. This is not a
She
this
says
this
this
is not a
kitchen, not
cooking
for cooking.
this could yes."
Yeah,
That was
tee your
so funny.
tee your listeners up for this house because I feel like there's some context they're missing.
Oh, it's so good. So here's some important context. She's one of my best friends. And so I get to see kind of the inner workings of them. But basically, husband and wife are both high-powered attorneys, lead super busy lives. They have 3 young kids, and they bought this beautiful, just like amazing 1920s house with really amazing architecture and original details. And she has sort of like a funkier taste. It's definitely she didn't want florals everywhere. She wanted color, but in sort of a refined, very intentional way. And when we went to renovate this house, we started having a conversation because it had a closed kitchen. And it actually, the previous kitchen wasn't really a galley kitchen, but it was closed to the rest of the house. And we were talking about like, okay, we could blow out this wall in between the kitchen and the dining room, and then move the family room into what is right now the dining room to give you this sort of like modern floor plan. And she said, you know what? I don't want my kitchen open to the rest of the house. Kitchens are messy, and I don't want to be looking at that mess. And I want to do a really traditional galley kitchen. And the choices were made purely from an aesthetic perspective. So, like polished marble, not the most functional, but like we wanted polished marble. And, those Le Cornu ranges for people who really cook are not always a hit. She didn't care. It was pretty. And it was actually really fun to do a kitchen like that because usually when I'm doing kitchens, it's like, okay, how many pots and pans do you have? And how can we maximize storage? And, when you're cooking, where do you like to prep? Do you prep by the stove? Do you prep by the sink? I mean, kitchens are incredibly time intensive and difficult to design because people spend so much time in there versus this family who does not. and, um, and she does she truly gets upset with him when he cooks eggs. She's like, this is not a cooking kitchen. And then he comes back to me and he's like, Alex, did you design me a kitchen that I'm not allowed to use? And I'm like, sorry, not my fault. Um, but yeah, it's unique. They're not entertainers, which is another thing where I think that sometimes it's an aspirational thing for people where they're like, oh, we entertain. But then when I really kind of push them on what entertaining looks like to them, it's like having another family over to watch a football game, or they're not throwing big formal dinner parties. These guys were just like, no, our house is not like the hangout house. We don't have parties. That's just not our style. And it was really kind of great because it was like, all right, let's just design what works for the 5 of you. We don't have to think about you're hosting Thanksgiving for 35. Where's the table going to go? And, like it's truly the five of you and what works for the five of you. And their kids sit at the dining table and do their homework. And, their oldest son goes into the sunroom and does Legos. And, it was cool. It was a really unique design experience for me. And I loved that they were really clear about what they wanted and what they didn't.
Well, it is a gorgeous kitchen, and we've been talking about kitchens a lot lately. So what stuck out to me was we just recently had a conversation about, how could you have a sink not at the window?
Yeah.
And you didn't put it at the window. You just put it in there and put a beautiful piece of art over it, and it's stunning.
Thanks.
It's a stunning kitchen.
I think that, when you're doing a galley kitchen, you don't have as many walls that you're working with. And we have a big set of beautiful glass French doors that lead out to a courtyard. And we didn't want to sacrifice that. That felt like such an important architectural element for the space. And so we just put the sink off to the side. And again, like it helps that they don't cook because we put an antique oil portrait over the sink. So, we're not worried about that. But I mean,
okay, but they still do dishes.
I mean, kind of.
But you gotta have.
No,
I mean,
I
what
love
about
this for them.
plates?
You don't have to, Caroline. You don't have to.
I think there's some paper plate usage happening.
Mhm.
Okay.
Some people love paper plates and disposable plates.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the Midwest, like there's not the sense of like formality that you guys have in the South.
I mean,
like
even
that
if it's melamine, like, come on. No, I'm kidding.
No, my mom, who's again, but she's from New England. But the point is like she loved, to this day, she'll come over and be like, do you want to get out the paper plates? And I'm like, no, I own plates. They go in the dishwasher after.
Listen,
what are you?
These guys, they have plates. I
They have plates. They have plates.
They have plates. I chose them. They,
They're by Chinette. I'm
they're
joking.
real.
I'm joking.
They're ceramic. And like they need something to put their takeout on.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, even if you aren't cooking, like you gotta eat off something.
This is
Although, you know what, I love this. I loved this project for that reason, which is that design for your life. And
Right.
and be unapologetic about it. And if you don't cook, don't make the kitchen the centerpiece of your design and your layout. And just be honest with yourself and your designer, obviously, about what you
Well,
do.
and
Yeah.
that's what I was saying, like about the entertaining thing. Is I think it's such an aspirational thing for people where they like want to be an entertainer even if they're not. And entertaining, like that's when you're designing a house for entertaining, like that is a very specific brief. You're really like you're maximizing butts and seats, and you're maximizing how much your table extends, and I mean, that's going into every single design choice. And so if you don't have to account for that, that's a really different take on a project.
Okay, walk us through the rest of the house, because there were definitely it had like a more modern, I would say, maybe not
Yes.
modern, but like streamlined, clean sort of aesthetic. And I love I guess like the TV room or the den with that green wall color. So, maybe how did the choices flow into the rest of the house?
Yeah. So we did this house in stages, which I think can often be really challenging because you're sort of making decisions in a vacuum that will ultimately impact other spaces pretty significantly. And so it's not always my favorite way to design, but because she is a friend of mine and it was very like collaborative, and she did have such a distinct idea of what she wanted. It didn't negatively impact us. And I actually think in a lot of ways it made the design more interesting. And, she definitely pushed me to pull back on my pattern and color inclinations, which was fun because it's not like she was saying, I want the whole house to be white and beige. We have a ton of color, but it's just really, really intentional. And I think that can just make for such strong design. Like the family room was one of the last rooms we did, actually. And it was like, okay, we've got this her formal living room is all white, which is not in the book. But then there's a sunroom, which is the Sandberg blue tree wallpaper, which I think on its own could feel sort of girly, a little bit softer. But then you come into the dining room and you've got these black leather chairs, which again on their own could feel really masculine, but they're balanced with this wallpaper. And so color drenching the family room felt like such an obvious choice because it sort of created this flow through the first floor of there not being too much tension between the spaces, but they didn't match. It felt like, okay, they all go together in some way. There's not like, it's not like the dining room's got this like super formal like mural paper, and then all of a sudden you're moving into, I don't know exactly, but my point is that that because the choices were more edited and a little bit more contemporary, it felt like every single choice had to be really impactful. And I love the way it turned out. They were really just so fun to work with, and they love art, which is such a big thing for me. And that's also really fun. And they have some really, really special pieces in their house that we sourced together. Some pieces that were family heirlooms for them, like that portrait in the sunroom. That's the homeowner's mom. And I think that as much as I love collecting in layers and when you have this really edited space, there's just something that can feel so elegant about it.
Can we talk about your house or your previous house?
Yeah.
Because I do want to get at the end to your new house. Okay, so yeah, you close the book with your now old house.
Yep.
And you kind of talk about how it did evolve over the course of the 6 or 7 years you lived there. What was it about the old house that, kind of moved into the new house? And was there any sort of like directional change from one to the other?
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely was. I mean, when we moved, our old house we got renovated, and our new house we got renovated, but they both were old houses, and so you're sort of working in some existing confines, which I tend to like. And when we did our first house, we had one child, and obviously I'd worked with clients who had more kids, but when they're yours, you see it a little bit differently. And like we live in Chicago, and we experience all four seasons to their fullest extent. And I remember years and years ago, before I had any kids, I did a mudroom for a client that was gigantic. I mean, it was like, I think it was bigger than their kitchen. And I remember at the moment being like, this is so weird. Like, this is just so much valuable real estate. Now, with 3 children who play sports, I'm like, oh my gosh, can I convert my whole first floor into a mudroom? Like, where are all of my gigantic hockey bags supposed to go? Because those are basically like additional people who live in my house, those hockey bags. And like the muddy boots and the snowy boots and the like, yesterday it's snowing, but today it's raining. And tomorrow it's going to be 75. And like, it's just, there is no mudroom in the world that could be big enough for a Chicago family. And that is something I didn't fully appreciate. And so in my new house, I definitely was like, okay, we're going to really commit some real space to this. My architect from Alabama thought I was insane. He was like, this is really big. But, things like that are just like functional. But then also, there were more things that I loved about my old house that I wanted to bring into my new house. So, I loved that our living room was kind of its own destination. It was separate from the rest of the house. And I found that we really used it because of that. And so we did the same thing here.
What do you think made it such a destination? Like, and what was it a destination for?
So in my old house, it was the only fireplace that we had. So I think that was a huge thing. We would always go in there for a fire. And our screen porch also opened up to it. And so I think those two things really made it a space that we gravitated towards. But what I loved is that there wasn't a TV in there, and it was kind of separate from the rest of the chaos. And so we would have like friends over with all their kids, and after dinner, the kids would play and like the adults would go and sit in the formal living room. And there was nothing formal about it, but like it was just separate. And then I also loved that, like, we could go in there with our kids and, like, there was no TV, and it was just cozy and everyone would bring their books. And so now in our new house, it's not the only fireplace, but we do still use it in the same way. And I'm intentional about that. It doesn't happen quite as organically because there's not this singular pull. But, like, we finished dinner and I'm like, "Okay, let's go in the living room," because I wanna use it. And then the other, probably the biggest thing, was that our old house had, um, windows that started at the floor, and I loved how that felt to live in. It felt like you were sort of, like, out in the garden, and no matter what room you were in. And our old house had sort of low ceilings, but it never felt claustrophobic because the windows were low. And it's not something I ever would have put into words that was important to me until I lived in it. And then I was like, oh, this is a non-negotiable for me. And so when we walked our architect through our old house as we were starting our new house, I said, like, if there's any way to do this in as many rooms as possible, I would like to. And he did it in pretty much every room for us, and I love it. And I'm so glad that we were able to replicate it. Like, you can even see, you're going to see all my mess behind me, but, like, my, like, bay windows go down to the floor, and that feels small but really
Amazing.
special. Yeah,
Mhm.
And it sort of seems like a no-brainer in some ways because,
I know.
like, a lot of times you can't even fit anything underneath a window with how the
Right,
ledge is, so it's not like you're losing much. You can always put something in front of the
right,
window. Yeah.
right. Yes, and that's how I feel. And I mean, there are places like our old house. It was just a really symmetrical house, and in the powder room was a full floor to ceiling window right next to the toilet. And it's like, all right, I mean, not ideal, like, but you keep that window treatment closed at all times, and, like, it's fine. Um, but yeah, in most other spaces, I think you can't go wrong.
Okay, back to the TV-less living room. This is a hill I will die on, maybe, but I feel like we've over TV'd our houses, and now it's time to pull back some. I l am I am so glad to have a living room, and that was something I felt like I had to have in my when we moved, was a second living room for no TV, and
Yeah,
I feel like people it's kinda great. I don't know. So I'm
I
glad you said that.
agree. Um, it's tough because this, again, kind of goes back to how you live. And, I don't really watch any TV, and so for me, I'm like, "Oh, we need, like, one TV in the whole house." My husband, who wants to watch golf, my kids who wanna watch their stuff, they disagree with me. And, I get that, but I don't want every room to serve the same purpose.
Yeah.
I want there to be a room that if you wanna watch a movie, you're gonna go in that room to watch a movie, and if you wanna sit and read a book by the fire, you're gonna go in that room and sit and read a book by the fire. I think that's how you really use your house, and it was something I talked to my husband a lot about through the process of, like, not every space has to do everything. And I think that when you're renovating or you're building and you have the opportunity to make those choices, you feel like, oh, well, we should fit everything into every space because we have an opportunity to customize it for ourselves. Um, but I actually think the best design happens when you don't try to make every space do every single thing, right? Like, you don't need, like, cozy seating in your dining room unless you have the space for it, fine. But, like, my personal preference is for a room to sort of have a purpose and then the next room to have a different purpose. And I do like a little bit more of a formal floor plan for that reason. And I find a lot of people who didn't want living rooms before are coming back and wanting them now.
Speaking to every room not needing to have every function, when you do that, like, if you do try to fit every single function into a room, you don't necessarily make it the best for the thing that's the most important, right? Like, if it's an office,
100%.
okay, well, if you make it also be a TV room and you wanna be able to I don't know, maybe that's a bad example, but, like, then it's not a really great office. Like, make it really good for the thing that's the most important instead of every room sort of so multifunctional that it's not great, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, like, I would never want, for me personally, I don't need like a TV while I'm cooking in the kitchen. I'm like, that's a great time to listen to music. But my husband is different, and he's like, I really like to, and he does actually cook, so he gets a say, and he's like, I really like to be able to have like the golf on while I'm cooking.
So what do
Um,
you do? Do you hide a TV? Is it open to your living room?
oh, this is a ridiculously specific scenario. So in our house, our kitchen is a really non-traditional kitchen. So there's no upper cabinets, and 2 full walls are windows. Um, and so it opens up into our screen porch. And so we did a cabinet that's kind of, I shouldn't say cabinet. Yeah, I guess it's a cabinet. Cabinet with a countertop, just lower cabinets that open. There's windows all above it that look out into our porch. And so we did, behind the cabinet is a TV, and you press a button and it raises up out of the countertop, and it's double-sided so that you can open the windows in the porch and have a TV in the porch and have a TV in the kitchen.
Okay, that is specific, yeah.
It's very specific,
But
very
but awesome.
practical. To me, that was really smart, but like a perfect example of not every room needing to do everything. But it felt really important to Spencer, and I am a very accommodating wife.
Does he use it as much as he thought he would?
Yes, and my kids use it even more. And like I will say, I like we'll be sitting in the porch and it's raining, and we'll turn on a movie in there, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
I mean,
But
it's
I'm
very
over
clever,
TV.
yeah.
I admit it. Yes, it was very clever. My husband came up with it. He's very proud of himself. It's cool. His party trick.
Love it.
Yeah. I think it's the connection part. I think is what we're going for. It's like we're now too connected
Yeah.
that we now need the space to unconnect. So I think that's probably to your point. Like you want spaces that you're not tempted by even. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
to your point. So
Well,
I
and
get-
I'm a huge reader, and so I will always ask clients, like, if you're a reader, where do you like to read? Do you like to sit in a chair? Do you like to sit on a couch? Do you like to lay down? Do you like to look out a window? Do you like to look into a room? Like, it's really, you find once you start asking those questions, people experience their space based on what they're doing in very different ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I was doing my mom's house, she was like, I only read in a chair, and I want to face out a window, and I want an ottoman that's the same height as my chair. It's like, all right, got it.
Amazing.
Ew, I love
Yeah,
that though.
I had my marching orders. So I think, asking those questions as a designer is so important, because how I feel about designing your space might be really different than how someone else wants it.
Yeah. Okay, when are we gonna see the new house?
Ugh, I don't know. Um, maybe I really don't know is the answer. I actually feel like the inside is pretty finished. I treated myself like a client, and I had presentations and sample bags, and I was pretty efficient in my decision making. Although all my designer friends would beg to differ because I had like tortured them asking their advice about everything. Because I just needed like a sounding board. Um, so the inside feels really pretty finished and layered, and I'm pretty happy with where it's at. We're doing a big, not big, but we're doing an exterior project right now because it's a house built in 1929 or 1927, and it has a 1-car garage. So we're adding a garage right now. And so I keep thinking like, I'd like the garage to be finished, and I would like my landscaping to grow in a little bit more before we shoot it. But again, living in Chicago, that might really be asking for too much, because it could be like years before my landscaping grows in to the point where I'm happy. So I don't know. Hopefully, like really long-winded answer. Hopefully in the next year. That's my hope. I think that we're getting there.
What were the hardest parts that you needed your design friends to help you through?
Oh my gosh, I was a nightmare. I literally was like offering to pay random people on Instagram to give me their opinion, because I was not my best self. There were certain things that I was so decisive about. And then other things that I just like, okay, so our dining room is original to the house. It's this really beautiful oak and walnut paneling. I don't think I would have necessarily chosen to have a wood panel dining room. It feels very heavy and serious and formal. But it was there and it felt so special and it was in beautiful condition. And it felt really important to me to design that room in a way that didn't feel serious because the architecture was so serious. And it's also a much larger room than I would ever choose to dedicate to a dining room. But again, it was existing. That was one where I was like DMing designers who I've never met, but I liked their taste and was like, any chance I could like pay you hourly to make this decision for me? And I really, that was tough.
Wait, who was it? Can you tell us who it was? Who is it that you were like, I need their
Like 3 different people. I'm so embarrassing. I like when I'm stuck, I'm shameless. I'm like, lady on the corner, can you just like quickly come inside and tell me what you think? And then I like just through this really small world story met this designer who I had always loved and loved her work. And we met on an airplane going to the Bahamas and our kids like hit it off and we ended up becoming really good buddies. And I was literally sitting on the beach, like sketching a floor plan, being like, but what do you think about this? Like, and she ended up on the beach redrawing my living room. I came home, moved all the furniture the way she drew it, and it was like perfection. And I had been struggling with this floor plan so much. So I think that the power of collaboration is amazing. And, I can be incredibly decisive with my clients. Like I know exactly what I want, what I like. With myself, I was getting a little bit stuck on certain things. And then the problem was that once I was stuck, it was like all I could think about.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean my poor friends. I've got a few like designer group chats that I'm a part of. And like I think it got to a point where the girls were all like, "Oh, it's Alex again."
No.
Like skip over this one. We already told her what rug she should do in there.
Are you happy with how it all came together?
Yeah, I am. And I am not somebody who like focuses on mistakes. So like yes, there's things I would do differently I think in retrospect, but I'm okay with like the choice that I made and I'm not gonna I don't sit there like feeling tormented by mistakes.
Well, the book is incredible.
Thank you.
I also love when a designer makes me not have to decide if I'm ruining it by putting on a book jacket.
So I felt really strongly about this. I felt really
Thank you for
strongly.
taking the choice away from us.
Yes.
Yes.
I felt like if this is a book you're going to use and read and interact with, the book jackets just get gross and they get like ripped and they get bent and it looks messy. And so I really, I think it was Amanda Lindroth had a book that came out that was this without a jacket. And I just fell in love with it. And I was like, this feels like me. It's unfussy. And I liked the lack of formality. And so that was that was super important to me. And then I wanted a print, like some sort of print on the spine. And my little.
And I love the
green
bookmark.
ribbon. I know, my little ribbon.
It's such a pretty
Uh,
detail.
Yeah. So, when you're doing a book, there's a lot of things that the publisher is like, we're going to choose this. You are not going to, even as the designer. But like the general design of the exterior, I was super involved with, which was really fun.
It's really beautiful. A welcome home,
Thanks.
inviting interiors. Go order it on Amazon or wherever you buy books in your local bookstore. Alexandra, can you tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, see your work?
Yes. Instagram is the best place. So at Alex Kaehler, which is a pain to spell, Kaehler, design. And I do lots of photos of work, but I also do lots of other unfiltered life stuff because I can't help myself. And yeah, hopefully it's a fun place to be.
Thanks so much for joining us. That's our show.
You're a good
Thank you
follow.
for having
great.
me. It was so nice chatting with you guys.
And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy
Happy
decorating.
decorating.